Hi everyone, my name is Tom Van Berkel, and today I'm going to give you the 10 reasons why I think CBT, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, is super cool. So let me introduce myself. I design CBT programs, I teach CBT, I'm a CBT therapist, and I'm the founder of Awake and this YouTube channel. So I know some of you guys might be thinking that cognitive behavioural therapy can be a bit boring. A lot of people think that. But today I'm going to tell you why I think it is radical, why I think it can change your life, and why I think it's so cool. The first cool thing about CBT is that it helps us to question what we believe. It asks us to question, is what I believe right or wrong? Is it true or false? And it uses empirical reasons and practical reasons. Now, believe it or not, most of the things that we believe, well, you know what? They're not totally true. They may be partially true. There might be bits of them that are true. And the things that we believe about other people, yes, there might be parts of those things that are true, but they're not totally true. Now, at the heart of CBT, it's asking us what evidence do we have to believe what we think. So CBT encourages us to question our core beliefs and what we think about ourselves and others, and that's why I love it. The second reason CBT is really cool is because of its history. Now, CBT is based on ancient philosophy and ancient wisdom. There was a guy called Albert Ellis. He was a famous therapist in the 60s and 70s in America, and he built the roots of CBT on ancient philosophy. He looked at Buddhism, he looked at ancient Socratic thinking, he looked at Greek philosophy, he looked at the Stoics, and he took the best of all of those philosophies, all of those theories, and he put it all into one system. And that was CBT. So when you're learning cognitive behavioural therapy, you're actually learning ancient philosophy. And those ancient philosophies taught some very important things like emotional responsibility, like emotional freedom. And that's one of the reasons I love CBT, is because I know that it's based on all of this ancient wisdom. Third reason why it's so cool is it teaches us something called emotional responsibility. Now, what does that mean? It means that we are responsible for our own emotions. In life, we have things that we can control and things that we can't control. Now, generally speaking, most of the things we can't control. We can't control other people, we can't control what they think, we can't control a lot of aspects of our life. But what CBT says is that you do have total freedom and control over one thing, if you want it, and that's freedom to control our emotions, our thoughts, and our response, how we react to things. And I think that's very powerful because, we live in a world where a lot of people are blaming other people for how they feel. They're blaming their circumstances for their emotions. They're blaming how other people behave on how they feel. And in truth, like every human being has the opportunity to choose how they feel in those situations. And that's what we're going to teach you on this program. CBT is cool because it is based on the scientific model. Now, how does science work? Well, in science, you have a hypothesis, you have an idea, and then you test it out. You go out and you study it and you research and you do a test and you see, is my idea correct or not? You test your hypothesis. And if it's true, well, you keep it and other scientists support it. And if it's not true, it gets thrown out, forgotten about. Same is true for CBT. CBT looks at our thoughts like hypotheses. Okay, this is an idea we've got, and then it looks for evidence to support whether it's true or not. Now, the crazy thing is even though humans love science, most of their thinking is not very scientific. Like, we don't question our own beliefs, we don't question our own thoughts. So that's pretty crazy. So CBT is just like science in that respect. Unconditional self-acceptance. Many of you might not have heard of this before. Unconditional self-acceptance basically means that we accept ourselves regardless of what happens. Now, most of us have been brought up in a culture of what we would call conditional acceptance. In our families, our parents might have said, well, you're a good boy, you're a good person if you behave properly, but if you don't, you're in trouble. We learned that our self-worth, our self-value was based on whether we were doing well or whether we were not doing well. So that's what we call conditional acceptance. CBT teaches us something called unconditional self-acceptance and also unconditional other acceptance. That means we accept ourselves in spite of what happens as a valuable and worthwhile human being, and we accept other people in spite of what happens as valuable and worthwhile human beings. And this is very powerful because we live in a world where people don't do that. People are constantly judging themselves, and they're constantly judging other people and labeling them as good or bad human beings. And I think we know where this kind of thinking can go. CBT teaches us unconditional acceptance, and that is very powerful. That is at the heart of inner work, of self-development work, and of spiritual work. So it's a revolutionary idea. Flexible versus rigid mindsets. Now, one of the things CBT teaches us is that rigid beliefs are at the heart of emotional suffering. You can take any situation in your life that you're struggling and suffering over, and I guarantee you at the heart of that, you will have a rigid belief, a rigid thought. And when we have that rigid view of reality, we suffer. For example, that could be a belief like, this has to happen, this must not happen, I must avoid this at all costs. Whatever that rigid belief is, it can cause suffering. Now, on the flip side, a flexible mindset, one that is more flexible with change, flexible with life happening, because life is change. Life is always moving, it's always changing. And it's important for us as human beings to have that flexible mindset as we go with the flow. And CBT teaches us that. Inner freedom, when we learn to take emotional responsibility, when we learn that we are in charge of our response, when we learn that we can choose how we respond to the challenges of life, then we can step into something called inner freedom, emotional freedom, where we have true freedom to experience and to choose. This is very powerful. And again, it really is at the heart of this work. And it's something that if you want to get involved in, that you can experience over time. Inner freedom is one of the great gifts of practicing and learning how to manage and master emotional responsibility. Life isn't always black and white. Sometimes it's very grey. We live in a world of polarization. And what does polarization mean? Well, it means you either choose this or you choose that. And what CBT says, well, it says in actual fact, things are a bit more complicated than that. Yes, there's some truth in that idea. And yes, there's some truth in this idea too. Things are a bit more nuanced. When you look to get to the truth, you can see that there is an element of truth in things, but it's not totally the truth. So when you step out of polarized thinking and you step into the middle, life becomes more enjoyable, it becomes more real, it becomes more balanced, and you become more wise. So learning how to understand the role that polarized thinking has and learning to see it in a different way is a very exciting benefit of CBT. Reserve judgment. Now, this is one of the big things CBT has taught me over the years. Learning to reserve judgment. At the end of the day, as human beings, we just don't know a lot of stuff. We like to think we know a lot of stuff. We like to think we're right. We like to think we know what's going on. But seriously, we don't really know. When you start to question what you believe, to question your thinking, to think, do I really know what I'm talking about? Do I really know who that person is? Do I really have the evidence to support my judgment, my assessment, my assumption? Most of the time we don't have that evidence. We think we do. So CBT teaches us to reserve judgment, to say, hold on a minute, let me see if there's any more information. Let me wait till more information comes along. It's very powerful. And learning to reserve judgment is one of the best things you can get out of CBT. And finally, why is CBT so cool? Because it works. As you probably know, it is one of the #1 therapies in the world. The NHS in the UK use it as their #1 therapy. And the reason they use it is because the science supports it. It works. And it's something that you can learn. That is why CBT is so good. So I hope this gives you a sense of why I love CBT so much. I've written a whole program for you to learn CBT. It's going to be available here on YouTube. So if you think this sounds cool, why don't you hang around and check out my next video, which is going to be talking about how CBT can be helpful to you in your life, and also what I learned from CBT and how it helped me. Catch you later.